Yo, what's up YouTube? Today we're gonna go over the roster for the Jubilee Piplups in the Wolfey Draft League. If you don't know, this is a draft league hosted by the world champ himself, Wolfey. He reached out to me and asked me, hey, did I want to participate in this draft league that he was creating? And I said yes. It was a really cool experience playing in SPL, and I get to play another awesome VGC draft league. This is my second draft league ever for VGC, and we got a stacked roster. We have a superstar stacked roster. Me, Wolfey, Aaron Zhang, Uzi Gunner, we have Necro, we have Shady Penguin, we have Mountai, who was the winner of the last SPL, and we also have myself, of course. So yeah, it's going to be a crazy draft, especially with only 8 players. All the teams are going to be stacked, and I'm going to be walking through the thought process of this draft that I have chosen. We had to pick 10 mons out of 100 points, and let me say it was a bit brutal because 100 points is not that high for a lot of these categories generally when you're picking 10 mons specifically. So I had to do something, but I do want to give a big shout out to my 2 boys, NJ11, who I would say his first name. I feel like I know how to pronounce it, but just in case I butcher it, because I have a feeling I would somehow butcher it, even though I'm pretty confident, yeah, I'm just gonna call him NJ like I normally do. And then Luca Tregut, a good friend of mine as well, and even though he doesn't play as much draft league, like he does help out the boys with the draft leagues in the fun times. Let me just say he is a monster, like just creative sets in general. So very hyped to showcase what we ended up cooking together. So if you don't know, I had first pick in this draft league, and there were a bunch of benefits of having the first pick. Of course, I get to choose one of the top tiers, of course, of the draft picks. And Regulation H, there are probably like 3 or 4 monsters that I would say would be like absolute amazing to grab at the first choice, right? So there's like Annihilape, of course, being one of the big ones. There's our Chaladon, of course, the Rain Demon. We have the, oh man, why can't I remember? Golden Go. I think Golden Go, of course, my boy. How could I forget about my Golden Go? Golden Go is such a great Pokemon, and of course was the one I was actually leaning towards the most, but I'll get into that a bit. And I think Kingambit, because really I think like the best mons are going to be the steel types, because it's really hard to get a good steel type. I think in Regulation H draft league they're very sparse, so I feel like grabbing a great steel type or Annihilape, which just has just good rolls in general, we're going to be like the top 4 picks, right? Of course, there's stuff like Ursaluna and some other mons like Dragonite that were definitely in contention, but I really feel like it's the big 3 steel types and Annihilape that are like the top tier picks for the first pick if you can grab it. So I was debating a lot about this first pick because I did have first pick, right? And I was like, okay, what is my goal in this draft league? Because I do want to try and of course do well in the draft league. I think everyone wants to do well. I really want to showcase battles, but I think I really wanted to push myself and really just try out different mons in general, because this is going to be like a fun content league at the end of the day. Sure, we have like a super stacked roster, but it's really for that competitive spirit where we're just going to have a good time and showcase the good matches in general, right? And I thought about like, okay, do I want to go with Golden Go? Because Golden Go is a top tier mon in my opinion, and it is like, oh, it is one of probably my comfort picks, right? I picked it for SPL. I didn't think I was going to get Golden Go in that league, and then Golden Go is just like a comfort pick in general, right? Like it's the Pokemon that I think I vibe with the most in playstyle wise. But I decided, you know what, I'm gonna change it up a bit. I thought about like, okay, I could go Golden Go and I probably could play things easily no matter what is thrown at me, but I wanted to change it a bit. I wanted to try to push myself once again and use something that I really haven't done before. So I was debating between like our Chaladon and Annihilape as my main ones. I'm really not a fan of like how playing Kingambit, and sure, that could have been like probably the one mod that pushed me over, but I feel like Kingambit's like, you have a Sol Vest, you have Sword Stance, you have multiple attacks, but I feel like it's a bit limiting. I'm not a huge fan of like having a 4 times weak top tier mon in draft league either for as many points as it is, because you would probably have to terrestrialize it a lot. So I kind of wanted more flexibility, and I think our Chaladon, well, I think our Chaladon's super good. I think having to run in a Rain Core, and that's kind of main core I've been using Regulation H in general, just like casually, I just felt like it would be a bit boring to just play like a standard rain team, even though there's like a lot of things you can do with our Chaladon, of course, with like stamina, beat up, the sturdy sets, the stalwart sets even. Like I was just thinking, you know, I like Annihilape. I haven't used it too much. I think it could have like a really fun time. So I chose Annihilape as my first Pokemon, and I feel like Annihilape is one of the top tiers in, of course, Draft League in general for VGC Reg H, and it's just a top tier mon in general because those fighting is absolutely incredible. There's no like Flutter Mane or like Tornadus that like really hit it for super hard damage, which I think is really nice in Regulation H. And there's like a lot of sets you can do because this Draft League is currently closed team sheet, best of 3, open Terra type. And I think Annihilape becomes so much better in closed team sheet because you have sets like Final Gambit stuff that I could do with like Scarf. I could just run a Final Gambit set in general. Coaching, of course. There's the setup ones with the bulk up, of course. But it gets so many different moves. I've run a Solvest in the past at a regional. Like, I think this mon has so much potential. And I think it was like, why wouldn't I go this mon? And Rage Fist is kind of broken with like just how in generally powerful it is. I chose Annihilape. It has so many different item choices, as I mentioned before, and really good abilities. Like, it has 3 incredible abilities. Granted, like Inner Focus, like you would probably just go with Define for the most cases. I think Vital Spirit can be really cool in some matches because there isn't like as many Intimidators, just because again it is Draft League. So sometimes I might not even need Define. Sometimes I could go Inner Focus. Like, I could definitely see myself bringing Inner Focus if there's like, oh, there's a lot of mons that can flinch in my opponent's team and there's no Intimidate I have to worry about, or Vital Spirit if I do fight like one of the sleep teams that can put me to sleep again that don't have Intimidate. So there's like a lot I could actually go with Annihilape. Like, they have to keep guessing on sometimes the ability, and if they do have Intimidate, they have to fear it because of Defiant. So I thought Annihilape was really good in general as a pick. Again, it gets really good coverage. Like Drain Punch and Close Combat, of course, are fantastic. Rage Fist is, of course, a broken move. Gets good coverage like Gong Shot, Ice Punch, just really solid moves in general. Like, there is a lot of stuff I have been theorizing with Annihilape in general for this Draft League that I think it was just like a really good pick. And of course, again, so many different sets I could run. I think it's very flexible, but at the same time, there are a lot of overwhelming options. But yeah, like, it's got really good stats across the board. It's kind of got like, I would say it's not like the best speed stat, but it's like pretty decent, right? Like, it could fit on a Tailwind mode, it could fit on a Trigger mode. Again, I could go with like a Scarf Annihilape. Like, there's a lot of things or a lot of ways I could just run this Annihilape on different draft compositions. So that's why I chose Annihilape. I think it's a really solid first pick. Ghost Fighting is pretty fantastic. Its bulk is incredible. There's so many ways I can pilot it. And yeah, Annihilape I just felt like was going to be the first pick in general. Now, let's move on to our second pick. We have Alolan Ninetales, and this is one that was heavily pushed by NJ, and honestly, like, I haven't really used Alolan Ninetales too much in Gen 9 in general. I don't think I've used it too much in Gen 9 at all, actually. Like, I've used it in Gen 7 and I liked it in VGC 2017. Otherwise, I don't really think I've used this mon too much. So as I said before, I'm trying to push for like mons I really haven't used too much of, and I felt like this was a good pick, especially because even though it was expensive, Annihilape was of course the full 20 points, Alolan Ninetales was 17 points. There were things that I did consider, which was, I think you need really important coverages in like Regulation H in general, especially just draft. I think like 2 really important types to get are a really good Fairy type and a really good Fire type, because Fairies are really slacking in this format. There aren't many good Fairy types just in general, so having good Fairy coverage I feel like is really solid because there's a lot less resist than like it would previously. So having a good Fairy type I think is fantastic. Having weather control is awesome, and there's like a lot of combinations I could do with Alolan Ninetales and Annihilape that NJ was super hyped on, and I did see like the vision. So Alolan Ninetales, really cool. Got, again, a lot of different items. I could go Light Clay, I could go Focus Sash, Covert Cloak, I could go Specs or Life Orb offensively. There's a lot I could really do with this Alolan Ninetales, and usually it will be the weather ability for the most case with setting up the Snow Warning. Am I gonna use Snow Cloak? I mean, maybe if I don't want the weather, but like, let's be real, most likely gonna be Snow Warning until I bring the Snow Cloak set and surprise my opponent off guard. But yeah, no, Alolan Ninetales I think is a fantastic mon. Aurora Veil, of course, is a really good move, having the weather, because of course there are going to be opponents that do have weather. There is Pokeaim, who is running the rain team, and then we have Mountai with the sun team. So yeah, like, having a way to change the weather is going to be fantastic. There's so many different things I could do with the Ninetales, of course. And one thing that it really synergizes with, of course, Icicle Spear, which is a multi-hit move I could do for Icicle Spear into my own Annihilape and get the Rage Fist stacks. There's the Aurora Veil, of course, that allows Annihilape to set up. There's a lot of good support moves. Freeze Dry is a really solid ice type attack. Blizzard's pretty strong. Moonblast, Encore Disable. There's just a lot that I could really do with Alolan Ninetales that it just felt well. Like even Howl is actually a pretty decent move if I want to set up with Annihilape immediately and go for a strong attack. Yeah, there's just a lot I could do with Alolan Ninetales. It has a really nice speed tier as well, base 109. Its other stats are kind of lacking in general other than special defense, but across the board I felt like, again, I haven't used Alolan Ninetales since Gen 7. I really liked it in Gen 7. I tried it out a bit in Gen 9. Haven't been the favorite really, but I do think that it has a lot of potential in this format. Again, Fairy is really good. Ice offensive coverage is fantastic. The speed tiers also just work super in my favor with having like a fast mon in general to be able to pressure, again, a lot of dragons that were in this draft. So I do think Alolan Ninetales was a very solid pick for what I wanted in the second one. And huge shout outs to NJ again, because he was really adamant about me getting this Annihilape Ninetales combination, which I think was pretty good. Next Pokemon we are going to go over though is going to be the Kilowattrel. So third pick was weird because this was a time where people were planning on sniping. This was like just a time period where we weren't too sure, because I wanted to really focus down and make sure I got like my fire type, and I really want to make sure that I got like my fairy type. I got my Annihilape and I got my Ninetales, and so far the plan looks solid. There wasn't really too much that was getting sniped on what I wanted. And then I was like debating like what angles I want to go for, and then NJ's like, dude, I think someone's gonna go for Kilowattrel. You should get Kilowattrel this round. And I'm like, really? Like I wasn't too sure. Like originally I was gonna get Cinderace so I could round out again the fire and the fairy type I wanted, but you know what, I was trusting NJ and I was like, okay, if you think there is, because he thought that there was potential for Kilowattrel to be potentially picked up by another opponent. And you know what's funny, we sniped Pokeaim. Pokeaim wanted Kilowattrel, so you know what, we sniped him, and shout outs to me listening. So I think Kilowattrel was definitely a mon I was just hyped on. Like Kilowattrel and Krookodile were both mons. Like I'll get into Krookodile, but I felt like it was just like such a solid core. Again, just having fast mons in general, which of course can be very helpful in this draft league, because Regulation H is just so weird with speed tiers where there's a big gap between like the 120s, and then a lot of things are kind of like in the middling speed of like the 90s to the 80s kind of area. So having mons that are just fast for that tailwind mode, of course, is just really good, and having electric and flying coverage is fantastic. So Kilowattrel was picked. I think this mon, I've used it before in Regulation H, and I did find it kind of underwhelming, but when I thought about it in Draft League, I think it had more potential than like what is showcased in regular VGC. And of course, it's had some good placements in Regulation H, so I did want to try it out once again. So there's a lot I could do with Kilowattrel. There's a lot of sets like offensive, of course, Covert Cloak, Focus Sash, all those good different items. It gets really, really good abilities. It gets 3 solid ones. Like competitive, of course, not really much to say. Again, if I'm facing like Intimidate, get a +2 special attack, yeah, that's a pretty big threat. Volt Absorb is fantastic because this gives me an electric immunity, and that's pretty solid into something like, let's say, Joey's Archaludon, if I want to do that, right? Where I'm just immune to that electric shot and don't have to worry about it. And then Wind Power, which is interesting. It's like a charge effect, which means you get a powerful electric type move the next hit if you set up Tailwind. I don't know if I'll really go for this, but there are some things, like there are some calcs with like Electro Ball stuff we've seen before on Kilowattrel and VGC, so definitely has some potential, I'd say. But across the board, its move pool isn't the greatest like coverage wise, but the moves that it does get are pretty nice. So it gets like some pretty decent setup. Air Slash for the flying type move. It gets Hurricane, Electro Web, of course, for speed control, Discharge if I get a ground type at this point. I also have Endeavor access. I do have access to, of course, Thunderbolt, Thunder Wave, U-Turn, Volt Switch, and Weather Ball. All of these moves can be utilized. Again, U-Turn would be self U-Turn on Annihilape. A Thunder Wave speed control, Volt Switch pivoting is of course really good. Weather Ball, since I have the Ninetales, definitely could be really useful. And then stuff like Eerie Impulse as well. Like even some of the other moves that I'm considering, yeah, there's a lot that I think Kilowattrel can do on this team, and I do think like it is a pretty solid mon. And yeah, like it has really good speed, decent special attack. Sure, the bulk isn't like incredible. I do at least have Aurora Veil, but it does match like if I want to go like offensive Ninetales, like this pair can be really good. Like having the Volt Beam coverage of like electric and ice is of course fantastic early on in draft. And I think Kilowattrel was actually like a pretty good price for what it was, because really fast flying type and has pretty much what I need here. So it was pretty solid, I think, picking up Kilowattrel for the third pick, and very happy about it. Next mon we have is Krookodile, and Krookodile, man, it's like I haven't used this mon in forever. It feels like I probably used it a bit in regulation age before, but it's not like too much. However, I think Krookodile is a pretty good mon in general. Like, of course, there are other ground types out there. There's like Garchomp and stuff, so you'll never really see it. And of course, the Intimidate mons like in Incineroar usually, but this is Draft League, so you don't really get access to too many of those. So having a ground type with Intimidate, I think Krookodile's value is just like amazing for what you get for. Again, there's so many different sets you could run with Krookodile, and you have things like Clear Amulet, you have like stuff like Assault Vest, Choice Scarf, Choice Band. I could definitely go with like some defensive Krookodile sets. There are supported Krookodile sets I could definitely go for, because this actually gets some decent support options like Taunt, for example, and Snarl. So yeah, there's like a lot I could do with Krookodile. And then like the abilities are pretty good, right? Intimidate, of course, is going to be a really solid staple. Like I think we all know how good Intimidate is in competitive doubles, but there's also like Anger Point strats. If I want to figure out a way to set up the Krookodile Anger Point, it could be a sweeper. And then Moxie as well, which can be useful if I really feel like Intimidate is kind of dead weight, because a Krookodile gets a knockout. Hey, it could go on a rampage, and then it gets really good coverage in general with really strong attacks. Close combat, Brick Break, Earthquake, high horsepower. Gets Dragon Tail for if I want to do it against a Tricker mode. Gung Shot. It gets access to Knockoff, Lash Out. Like, it gets a lot of good moves, man. It gets a lot of good moves. And of course, like, it does have like Taunt, Breaking Swipe, Snarl, Low Sweep in case I need to go for like the supportive option. So yeah, like I think Krookodile is a very solid mon in draft. Really high attack, like good HP. Its defenses aren't like incredible, but they're good enough. And then its speed stat's pretty solid for what it is in draft. Like, I think this mon is an absolute monster, especially because like it's good at probably into the opposing steals. Since I have Annihilate, which is probably one of the monster threats in Krookodile the most, I think having my own Krookodile just to be, you know, good into like Golden Goals and other things, like I do think Krookodile was just a really good pick in general. I think there's so much that I could do with Krookodile. I really like it in draft, or the concept of it in draft. Intimidate, again, fantastic ground, dark coverage, really good offensive types, and it pairs well with my Kilowattrel, right? Competitive plus Intimidate, so both of these not really the bulkiest mons, but they can take attacks pretty well, have Aurora Veil access, like the ground, ice, and electric coverage is a really good core. Yeah, I think it's just super solid for I think what I needed on this team, and I felt like the points were pretty good for Krookodile and Kilowattrel, so that was the idea. Then next Pokemon we have is the Cinderace, and I was really debating hard about my fire type since like round 2, because I knew I wanted a good fire type, because I'm not affording Incineroar. I'm kind of shocked that there was no Incineroar drafted, but across the board it's like, okay, the fire types are kind of strange. Do I want to go for like a lot of points and get a good one, or do I want to like really kind of scrounge around for a fire type? Because I feel like a lot of my past drafts, like the fire type tended to be pretty weak. Like in my singles draft league I did for WBE, I got like Torracat into Raboot and gained a bunch of fire type there. I felt like it was pretty good for what it was, but when I completed SBL, my fire type mon was Fletchinder, and Fletchinder only did really Tailwind, and I couldn't really use it as a defensive fire type, which felt really awkward at times. So I felt like I wanted to spend more on this draft to get a good fire type, and I was like, okay, you know what, we're getting Cinderace. And Cinderace was a mon recommended by Luca, and me, NJ, and Luca were like, you know, going back and forth between, okay, what fire type do I want to get for, because I needed like a cheaper fire type, but I didn't want to like cheap out, like get like a low point fire mon, right? I think Cinderace was like a good in the middle fire type mon in the point system, and yeah, like it was either between Cinderace and Magmortar, which Magmar was just really expensive. Magmortar had access to Follow Me, which of course is just really good in general, but man, its stats are like super lacking compared to the Magmar when it comes to the defensive type. It's good offensively, but it's pretty slow, so I wasn't really sure about that. What Luca really convinced me though on Cinderace. Luca was convincing me on Cinderace for like a few reasons. One, more fast, more speed. And I think like in this draft league, having like a lot of speed is very nice because I know like the lower picks I'll go for are probably going to be like slower. So might as well just use like the points early on for speed. And even though like Cinderace isn't like the bulkiest mod, it's not like terrible, and its supported move pool is actually really good, which we'll get into. There's a lot of offensive or defensive sets I could go for. Assault Vest, I could go for Choice Spin, Life Orb, Focus Sash, Covert Cloak. There's so many, again, really good items here. And then abilities, like, it's kind of interesting because I'll have Blaze if I want to go consistent, or Libero could actually mess things up for my opponent because Cinderace gets really good coverage, and I mean really good coverage. Gets access to his own setup. Coaching, I like the idea of fast coaching when I have Kilowattrel, or not Kilowattrel, Krookodile and Annihilape, because being able to set up those with coaching immediately for a follow-up attack can be really good. Core change, which is pretty interesting because if my opponent's like, hey, I want to set up screens, or I want to get tailwind up, I can swap the effects, which is actually really cool. They might not expect that because that's more of a singles thing, but it'd be really good in draft. You get access to Snarl, you get access to Super Fang, you get access to Sword Stance, you get access to Taunt, you get access to, of course, U-Turn and Will-O-Wisp. You get so many different interesting moves. Like if I want to go offensive, I could go with Feint as well. And then there's speed control moves like Low Sweep and Mud Shot. Like there is a lot I could probably do with the Cinderace, which I am pretty excited, especially that coaching set. Like the thing that this thing can be, you know, like I could also, like, since it has naturally good speed, right, I could just invest a lot more into bulk and it'll make up for it, but Cinderace will still be like pretty fast even without any investment, right? So I think the fact that this Cinderace is just really good, I think, for like what it was valued. Like it is a very valuable mon. It can be offensive, it could be fast, it could be slow and more tanky. Like it can do a lot, I think, to my draft because it has so many flexible modes that I think just complement what I already have, right? So that was the idea of having a really strong fire type. I also like the idea of having a pure fire type for the resisting to fairy moves in general, ice type moves, which was a little bit hard to switch into. So yeah, I think it's a good wall breaker as well. It can do a lot, I think, on this team, and felt really solid, I'm pretty sure. So shout out to Luca, who really convinced me to get Cinderace over to Magmar. I think both would have been pretty good, but Cinderace did seem like the mon I really wanted to try, especially because I haven't used it since like Gen 8, really. Like I have not used this mon since Gen 8. It was really strong in Gen 8 for when it was like a really good time period for Cinderace when it came out in like Series 5, I think it was, with Libero. Of course, it's not as good as it was because Libero got nerfed in Gen 9, but overall, I think it's a really solid mon for what it is. And if it wasn't for like the fact that it underspit Sneasel by like 1 point, like it would actually be a decent mon in VGC. I think this mon would be really good, but I only have to deal with 1 Sneasel, so there's a lot I think I could do with this mon, and it should be like really cool. I do believe that Cinderace might be a surprise really strong fire type in this draft. My 6th pick involved Blastoise. So I actually don't have much experience with this mon in its normal form. I have a lot of experience with the mega form, but I've never really used regular Blastoise before, and it's gone through quite a few changes ever since I really have used it. I mean, I did use it in the Gen 8 Gigantamax when it got like the Hydro Cannade, which was actually pretty good. The residual damage was pretty broken. I never really used Blastoise in its purest regular form here, so should be pretty interesting. But water types are kind of weird in Regulation H. Unless you're using Rain or maybe like Primarina, you don't really get access to like the best water types, especially just because of how the format works. Because of stuff like Rillaboom, that's always super threatening to the water types in general as a very common mon, and a lot of them are pretty underwhelming. Maybe like Milotic and Palafin can work in like some situational periods, but they're pretty expensive. But I do like the defensive capabilities of having a water type, and I think Blastoise just made a lot of sense here, and it's a pretty flexible mon, especially again for the point value. I think Blastoise does have a lot of options. It's got pretty good bulk, as you can see. Base 100 defense, base 105 special defense, base 79 HP is pretty solid. Its attack stat isn't the greatest in the world, but it can be at least physical or special. But it does have a few tricks that it does have access to. It's got 2 good abilities. If I do want to figure out like a rain mode for like a week, I think Rain Dish could come in handy. Torrent, of course, is still a pretty solid ability regardless. A lot of items I could run on the Blastoise: Rocky Helmet, Citrus Berry. I could go with the other stuff that could be defensive, like leftovers. I could pair with Rain Dish. I can go with like a White Herb, or for Shell Smash I could go for like Life Orb, Choice Specs, even Choice Scarf, and I could do some pretty crazy techs with Blastoise. So it's a pretty flexible mon around because it's got a good support move pool, and of course as a water type it is pretty strong offensively because it does get its good special moves, access to ice coverage like Ice Beam and Blizzard, especially with my snow mode. Or Spear, of course, is a pretty good fighting type attack. Water moves like Muddy Water as a spread water move is actually pretty fantastic. Gets access to Haze, which is useful against Aaron's Dundozo. Icy Wind as a support move. Iron Defense Plus, I believe it does get Body Press. Yeah, it gets Body Press, so it does get that option if I really want to go that route. Gets pretty good physical moves as well, like Wave Crash. Water Spout, of course, is fantastic. Weather Ball can be situational. Like, it gets a lot of good moves in general. And then you have like Fake Out, Life Dew. There is so much that Blastoise can do, especially for like its point value. As I said before, I think it's actually pretty fantastic for what I'm getting out of this Pokemon. So I think it's a really solid option, and again, a really good pick here. I could go offensive one week, I could go with a setup mode another week, and then I also have access to just a standard supported Blastoise as well. And Water Spout's also like really nice because having a powerful spread move is always appreciated, because I don't really have access to that, right? Like, I do have like Discharge, Earthquake, and I do have Blizzard, I suppose, but just having another really strong option I think is always pleasant. And yeah, there's again so many things I can do with Blastoise. It's an interesting speed tier where it can work both like on a slower mode of this team, but it's like fast enough to work on like a Tailwind or like any other kind of form of speed control. So definitely has, I think, a lot of room to be used, and I'm excited to use Blastoise because I do think, again, its low special attack stats kind of drawn me away from using it, but I'm pretty excited to try it out because, again, I haven't used Blastoise in its regular form much. I've only used it whenever it had a Mega or Gigantamax, so it should be pretty interesting to see what I can come up with for the Blastoise in the Draft League. Then we got Hydrapple, and I don't know if people might remember this, but for the older Gen 9 fans of James, I used Hydrapple like one of the first weeks it came out in the DLC, and I thought this Pokemon was actually really insane. Like, it is pretty dang good. Like, if you look at its stats are actually really incredible, right? Base 106 HP, 110 defense, 120 special attack, and a solid 80 special defense. Its speed is low, but like not really that big of a factor because I already have a lot of fast mons. Having a more tank grass type I think is like pretty good, and it's got some pretty good stats across the board. For the point value, again, I think a lot of what I like in draft is how flexible mon is, as well as like the point value like I can get, because Hydrapple I think super undervalued for what it is. It gets really good stats. Terrestrialization is really good. Grass Dragon's a pretty interesting typing, and it's not bad. I did want a dragon type, and grass types I was looking at was like Superior and a few others, but I really like the idea of having a more defensive grass type. I felt like my draft was already a little bit too fast. I kind of wanted to slow down the pace, and I think Hydrapple did work. No, Joey, I did not steal Hydrapple for you, and you told me that well, one of the reasons you drafted Hydrapple was you saw me using it in a video. So yeah, like Hydrapple I think is like really cool. It does get really good abilities. Super Sweet Syrup, which is pretty cool with evasion, which, you know, I could make those Power Balls 100% accurate. I could make some Blizzards out of snow a bit more accurate. Like, there's like a few things I could do with Super Sweet Syrup that I could see myself going for. Sticky Hold, if I'm facing like a team where knockoff and I need my held item like an Assault Vest or something is necessary, I think it can be useful. And of course, Regenerator is so good, especially with a high base HP stat. Be able to recover by switching, especially when I want a Pokemon that's bulky as Hydrapple to be a pivot mod. Yeah, like that is going to be awesome. A lot of common items. I could go offensive. I could go Assault Vest. I think Assault Vest is going to be like one of its best sets. But of course, like I could go with like any of these items. Like, a lot of these items are just pretty good in general. I could go with a lot of different setup, and yeah, like there's not much to say because this mon can be both a good special attacker just right off the bat. Base 120 special attack is really strong, and then like again, really good defenses in general. There's a lot of support items I could run, and it's got a really good move pool for what it is. Like, it gets good dragon coverage. It gets Fickle Beam, which could be pretty funny because 30% chance to be a 160 base power dragon move. Could be cool. A good grass type move is good. Access to the earth power, the pollen puff, nasty plot if I wanted. gets recovery options, gets screens if I want to. I do have Sucker Punch as priority if I need it. Yawn is also pretty cool with like leftovers if I need it. Breaking Swipe support. Self Bullet Seed for my Annihilape for the Rage Fist. Like, there is so much I think I could do with Hydrapple that I think it's such an insane mon. Serum Bomb, I'm not a huge fan of the accuracy, but I think it's a really cool move depending on the situation. But yeah, like I think Hydrapple has some really cool text that I am really looking forward to. Like, I think this is one of my most forward-looking mons to use. Like, out of all the mons in the draft, I think Hydrapple and Cinderace are definitely the ones that I really want to explore the most, because these I think are really cool mons that I just don't really get to use out of like all my draft, and I've had some really fun experiences with them in the past, so I'm really looking forward to reusing them in Gen 9. So yeah, I think Hydrapple again kind of gave me more of a bulkier, tankier mon, because I think we're kind of moving away from like what I had before, which was a really fast draft. Now we're slowing down the pace with Blastoise and Hydrapple, making it a bit bulkier, having some tanks, some switch-ins, some supportive options, and I think it's like something that this draft really could utilize. So again, a lot of just cool options that I think I can do with Hydrapple, good support moves in general. I wish it had access to Rage Powder. It would be even more insane, I think, for my team. But across the board, I think that like this was a solid pick that I really wanted, because it rounds out my fire, air, water, and the grass core. And it does give me that dragon typing that I feel like I would want on this team. So very solid. Next Pokemon we have Furret. And yeah, like this is where the draft, of course, like I got my main 7 mons. I felt like the 7 mons I really wanted were pretty much the higher tiers. I kind of went like, okay, 2 really expensive ones, and then the rest were kind of like in the middle of the point system. Now I have to fill out like 10 points with 3 picks. So I was wondering what I really wanted out of these picks. I wanted more support options, of course. And I felt like one thing I did really want was redirection to help out, potentially fake out mon if I really needed to, but I already had Blastoise. But I think a redirection mon can be super valuable. And one mon I was looking at was Furret. And Joey, like I know it's looking like your draft, right? I know it's looking like your draft, but I get like the mons that I think have the most value for the points that they're worth, right? So out of like the point system, I felt 4 points for Furret for what it does is pretty decent. Its stats are not great. It's got 85 HP and 90 speed. Its defenses are pretty lackluster, but it does have a few things that I think are valuable in this draft, which is A, Follow Me. Follow Me is literally the main reason why I drafted the Furret, because having that redirection can be really nice, especially because I don't really have a good ghost immunity. I have 1 ghost resist, which is Krookodile, but otherwise I don't have any good answers to ghost. So having Furret I felt like was pretty nice to have here. And also like it does get access to some support moves like Super Fang, which is pretty cool. There's like some other sets that I could run, Baby Doll Eyes, which I've used on Mousehold in tournaments, so I'm used to that. Weather moves, which I think is pretty solid, and you know, has some pivots. It's not going to be an offensive mon, like it's mainly just going to be a supportive option, but I think a supportive option with Follow Me, that's 4 points, pretty dang valuable. There's some stuff I could do with Baton Pass, which I did debate about, and I'll keep those secret for now. But across the board, I think Furret did have again good value for 4 points, because I was looking at like Trick Room, I was looking at Follow Me, and I was looking at a steel type generally. So that's basically how I want to restructure my last 10 points. And ideally if I could get a poison type as well, and there was one mon I was looking towards, so that was the case. And again, I think even though its abilities not the greatest, there is one which is Frisk, which is actually super valuable in draft compared to like regular VGC, or at least VGC in its current form, because a lot of VGC of course is currently open team sheet, but since this draft league is running closed team sheet, being able to find items is so good in closed team sheet. Like being able to analyze, hey, you're this item, that gives me more ideas of like what set they're running. I mean, that's super valuable, and that's actually a reason why I really like Wolf's Draft. I guess it's off topic, but Wolf's Draft has like 2 Frisk bonds, which are really good. So he'll always have the information game, which is huge. And I think having the information game can be super valuable, especially because I can lead Furret next to like Blastoise with Shell Smash, bulk up with Annihilape, a setup that I have with other mons. Like it's a good way to just find out, okay, what sets are you? How do I anticipate like you can threaten my Setamon and protect it using the Furret to follow me or chip away with Super Fang? Like, I think for 4 points, this was definitely a great pickup here. So that is going to be Furret. Next Pokemon we have is the Duosion, and yeah, this is definitely a Mon that I'm going to be real, I wasn't too sure of. I want to shout out NJ for this pick, especially because I was debating about getting a Trickermon, and the two Mons I was thinking of generally were going to be Bronzor at one point or Duosion at one point. And I was looking through them and I decided to go Duosion, obviously. But like, if you notice, Duosion's special attack stat is base 125. It is the same as its evolution, which is kind of insane when you think about it. Like, this thing has a base of 125 special attack stat. That is really high. These psychics will hurt. Even non-invested do a lot of damage. So it's actually a pretty solid Mon for what I need it to be. Then you have like, its bulk isn't the greatest, 65 AP, 50 defense, 60 special defense. With a Violet, it kind of helps out. It's not the bulkiest Mon, but it kind of does what it needed to do. A Trickermon, which I think is really cool. Its abilities are really good. Overcoat, of course, for like spore stuff. You do have Magic Guard, which can be sick, and then Regenerator. Like, even though this isn't a bulky Mon, like having a double Regenerator core could be useful, especially when I have a lot of pivot moves like U-turn and flip turn that I have access to. So yeah, like, I think it definitely has some pretty strong value for what it is, especially as a one pointer. Felt like it was really good. I chose Duosion over the Bronzor mainly because of this base 125 special attack stat, because Bronzor is better at like tanky attacks, but man, I didn't realize how bad its offensive capabilities were. Like, I thought Bronzor had like better attack stats in general, but like Duosion base 125, I think it just made more sense because I feel like I would definitely have thought about bringing the Duosion more. There was also like a lot of Trick Room stuff, Size Spam stuff in the draft. There are two players that do have access to it, so I'm like, yeah, maybe I could definitely bring this, because if they bring the terrain, I could bring like Expanding Force. I have Encore, I have screens that are available. I can reverse Trick Room, I could imprison. Skill Swap's actually a really cool ability here. And yeah, there's like a lot of just good support moves that Duosion has. Like, its coverage isn't like great, which is the thing. I mean, it gets like a few moves. It gets like Energy Ball. Of course, having the Terra option is just going to be good. And then like, yeah, I mean, it's not really the best. If it had Thunderbolt over Thunder, it would be probably a bit better. But like, across the board, it is going to be a Mon that is just going to be used for Trick Room probably, and really help out against Trick Room teams. So that was Duosion. Feel like it's a pretty good powerhouse for a one pointer, especially because these stats for a one pointer are really good. Like, they're really good. And then last Mon, I was debating about some stuff, like how I was going to structure this draft. I had like a bunch of lists of Mons I was considering for just like in general for like the low point system. I wanted Orthworm originally as my steel type, but that got picked up actually pretty early. So I was like, okay, since I won't get access to Orthworm, I did want like something for like the T-Spikes Glamora that a Wolf does have. And I think just having the ability to have like a poison type to switch into the Toxic Spikes from like what Aaron could set up as well could be pretty valuable. So stat wise, I really don't remember this Pokemon. Like, you could ask me about this Pokemon and I really don't remember too much about it. Revavroom, man. Yeah, it's definitely a unique Pokemon, and I didn't even really know much about its stats, really. Like, I know I played it in the game, and there's like, oh, you fight a Revavroom like 5 different times, but like, I'm gonna be real. Like, do I really remember it? No. So, base 119 attack is really good. Really good. It has really actually generally good stats. 80 HP, 90 defense. It's only 67 special defense that's kind of lacking. 90 speed is actually pretty solid. But across the board, this Mon, for 5 points with Steel and Poison, which are the types I wanted, solid abilities, decent move pool, yeah, like, this was the perfect thing to round out the draft, I think. So again, having a switch in for the Toxic Spikes, having a way that could just be able to have the steel type that I want for the fairies, I think is pretty good. I like the idea of like what I could do with Revavroom, because again, so many different items I could run. I could go supportive on this thing. I could go with a more offensive one. I could go for a setup as well, because it does get access to like Shift Gear and Curse, I believe. So yeah, like, there's a lot of ways I could really run Revavroom. And yeah, it gets really cool access to abilities with Overcoat, which again, really good ability in general, but also Filter is actually really good. If I terrestrialize Revavroom to get rid of its Steel Poison typing and have the Filter option, it is pretty dang solid. It's actually hard to get rid of because I could just fix the special defense stat, and yeah, it already has decent enough bulk, so I think it's pretty good there. And then got some pretty good moves, right? Like a second Hazemon, I'll definitely take it because against Dundozo, I will 100%. Gets access to high horsepower, gets Gunk Shot and Poison Jab, Lash Out. Overheat's funny if it got a physical fire move. Like, I mean, it does get Temper Flare, which is another option, but it is a little bit weak. A Spin Out is actually a really cool Steel type move. Wish it got Iron Head too, but I guess Spin Out will be also useful. Like, I wish it had Iron Head because it would complement more with the what's it called? I literally said it earlier in the video. Shift Gear set. Yeah, the Shift Gear set, because I'd have a really good Steel move with that. But yeah, otherwise I'm gonna have to run like Heavy Slam probably, and it's like a lot weaker, of course, depending on the situation. But yeah, across the board, I think it's a really solid mon. Gives me access to T-Spikes if I want it, Toxic access, a Taunt, Parting Shot are definitely other support moves that this thing gets, which is actually pretty solid. And yeah, there's like, again, a lot of ways I could probably run this Revavroom, and it's actually a pretty good mon, I think, for the support option for 5 points. Again, really solid Steel Poison typing that I wanted. Like, both typings were pretty much what I wanted. And yeah, like, I've never really used this thing before, so I'm excited. Again, most of this draft consists of Pokemon I just have never used before, or maybe have a little experience, but not like too much. Like Alolan Ninetales I've used in 2017, not really much otherwise. I've used Cinderace in Gen 8, but not much otherwise. I've used Blastoise, but only its Mega and Gigantamax forms, really. And then, like, yeah, I just never really used these mons too much. So I'm excited to see what I can cook here, because in general, I think that the build is pretty solid for what it is. And I wouldn't say I'm like the best draft pick. Like, I think all the drafts are super solid that the coaches made. I do really like my draft though, because it features like a lot of Pokemon that I've never used before. So I'm really going to have to like think on like what sets there are. And I do have a lot of options again with the sets, because I think a lot of them are really flexible. Like, the only mon that isn't really flexible, I think, is Furret. But like, for what I'm getting, yeah, like, it's going to be good enough. Like, just redirection and the Frisk is just good enough point value here, and like everything else I could run some pretty unique sets, I think. So I'm pretty excited to see like how far I could go with like building specific teams. And I'm kind of glad I'm not using Dundozo for this draft, because one of the things I had a problem with SPL is I had too many options with Dundozo, and I was always trying to figure out, okay, how are they beating the Dundozo? Like, how do I set up a guaranteed Dundozo win? And then I always had to figure out, oh, like, what mons have burn, what options did they have for like just being able to get rid of my stat boost, like what ways are they able to stall, what ways are they able to break through. And that was giving me so many headaches, and I limited my team building to an hour in that process. I think here I'll have more fun general mons that I can work with, and we'll see. Like, it could backfire, but across the board I think I have really flexible mons. I think, like, again, a lot of options, which again could hurt me, but across the board I think I got pretty good value. I think I have like really solid cores, and should be a pretty fun draft league. We will be starting uploading on the main channel. Actually, I'm uploading this video on Friday, and which then I think literally the day after is literally when the draft league kicks off. So we'll have 7 weeks. All the coaches will be facing against each other, so it's like round robin, and then move on to top 4. And of course, I would like to make it to top 4 as one of the competitive VGC players who are doing it. But as I learned from SPL, Draft League is a completely different league in its own. And like, Joey always said it, and I always knew it in the back of my head. But like, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like, we have some master VGC players and master Draft League players. Like, it is going to be really tough. But I think this squad can accomplish it. I really hope to push myself and see like what kind of things I could come up with these mons, because again, I really want to just try out some fun mons that I just never have really used before. And hopefully, if I don't make it into playoffs, I at least want to have some really good battles. Like, that's basically the goal of this: have some really good battles, have some really good battles for the viewers that can enjoy. But yeah, like, again, I really want to give a huge shout out to NJ and Luca for helping me with this draft, as yeah, I think it was a really awesome cook here. We're gonna see how it goes, but yeah, let me know what you think about the draft. If you have any ideas for the picks and what you have done differently, let me know in the comments down below. And see you for week 1 of the Wolfey Draft League kicking off on the main channel